I'm going to show you guys how you could use the prediction market Kalshi. Now, if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you smash that like button so we can get it out there to everybody in the sports betting industry so we could help them win. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at Kalshi and what it looks like. So when you first log into here, there's a bunch of stuff that you see and you might be overwhelmed. This is not like your typical sports book, okay? You're not going against the sports book here. You're going against other people, okay? It's peer-to-peer. So for example, there's a bunch of stuff that you could make, trades on. That's what they're calling it here. They're calling it trades. So for example, you got the college football championship winner here. You got Ohio State, Indiana. This number right here shows how much volume is being bet on that game, okay? So it's almost $26 million there. Now, if we move over here and go and see exactly what it looks like for a college football game, this is just a bowl game that's going on, you can see not as much. So about 433,000 is being wagered or traded on this game right here. Now, I'm going to go through and show you guys what I like about this website, how it works, and what I don't like. All right, so first let's get to what I do like. So what I do like, let's go to sports and let's focus on football here. So if we go to pro football, for example, we look at the Rams and the Seattle game. So if you click on that game, when you go in here, you're going to see a bunch of percentages. So to the avid sports bettor, you see this stuff, you get confused. You have no idea what any of this stuff means, right? You don't know what the cents mean or anything like that. Well, the cents are just pretty much the odds. They translate it into shares pretty much to get over the regulations of like this is sports betting, even though it is sports betting. So for example, let's say if we're going to take the Rams. If you're going to bet the Rams here and you go up here, put a stake in, let's say $1,000. Okay. Right there, you can see what your return is going to be. Your return would be almost $1,900. Okay, so that means this number, sports betting wise, is close to like the minus 120-ish, minus 130-ish range. Okay, that's what it kind of translates to, and that's what you could use as kind of a gauge to see. But the thing that I do like is that you can't get limited on this site because it's only a matter of how much money is being wagered on the game as to how much you can put down. So let's say, for example, I wanted to put 10,000 down. I'm able to do that. It wouldn't say, no, you can't, or tell you you're limited. If I wanted to put 100,000 down, same thing. It would let me do that. Okay. Now, if we go to $1 million, here's the thing. You get to $1 million. Yes, you can put $1 million down, but the odds are going to update now because you're going to change the forecast of how much money is being wagered on a certain side. So you would actually end up changing the odds, putting $1 million down on this game, which would actually hurt your return, really. It would hurt your return because there's not enough being wagered on that side for you to collect to not move the line. So you still would be able to place that amount of money, but your odds start getting worse and worse the more money that you spend at that type of level. Now, I know nobody's watching this thinking, all right, I'm going to put $1 million on this game, but that's just an example of you not getting limited, and you can actually continuously do this and put a high stake in there without worrying about the sports books taking your stuff. So now let's go ahead and the alternate stuff that they have on here as well. So you can adjust the spread, you can adjust the totals, and as you do that, you'll see this number right here being able to change, okay? And that's going to be like your odds. That's your odds pretty much. Okay, so as these numbers change right here, so do these. Okay, so the lower the cents get, pretty much what that means is the higher the odds. Okay, so for example here, 31 cents kind of correlates to a plus 300 pretty much because you're putting down 1,000 and then you win 3,000. More or less actually like a plus 200 because you got to equate for this money in there as well. Okay, so you're actually only making 2,000 there. But that's what it would equate to, all right? And you can move the line pretty decent amount on here. You can do as much as you want. But remember, the problem is with this is, for example, let's say you're going heavy on one way. Let's just look at the total here. Let's say if the total, if we want to drive this all the way back to 38 points, okay? We could do that. Let's say we put 1,000 on that, okay? That line right there is about minus 220, 230-ish, okay? You can't keep going up in bet, unit size here because you're going to kill the odds because there's not too many people on the opposite side here betting that know like it's not going to go over 38.5. So you got to kind of find that sweet spot when you're putting in your certain bets on here to where it's not affecting the line as much. Now, like I said, they give you some good options here because as you can see, anytime touchdowns, I'm not really a fan of. Neither is the first TD or anything like that. But as you will see, closer to game time, they'll give you more and more options actually. Okay, they'll actually give you the passing props. They'll give you all that stuff that you need to be able to make a pretty good, bet here. They don't limit you at all. That's the biggest thing with Kalshi is you're not going to get limited. Okay, the only thing is if you're betting a heavy unit size, you're going to move the line. And when you move the line, it's going to adjust how much money you make. But other than that, I mean, this is pretty solid to use. Okay, very solid to use. And this is legal everywhere. This is pretty much legal everywhere because they're not using it as sports betting. They're using it as trading, and that's why they have all these numbers on here with cents, because it's like you're buying what they would say is like contracts almost. So let's say yes on here. You put that in. As you can see here, you're buying in contracts, and that's like day trading pretty much. But you're correlating that to sports betting. So that's how they're being able to get away with this. And as of right now, DraftKings and FanDuel, they don't really like this website whatsoever because it's attracting a lot of people to get on here. Now, the things that I don't like is they give you a decent amount of options, okay? We get a decent amount of options here, but we don't get every option like your traditional sports book. So, for example, if we go, again, we just go to pro football. Like, we can't really have the alternate props in every sector. So what they do is they'll give you pretty much like this right here. You'll see passing touchdowns, passing yards, receiving yards, but they won't really stretch it. As you can see like here, like Smith and Jigba here, if you wanted him at like 70 receiving yards, well, they don't stretch it like that. Whereas in like FanDuel and DraftKings, you'll be able to stretch it and be able to get those type of numbers. The reason why they don't do that is because the opposite side isn't, nobody's betting that, okay? Nobody's probably going to bet that he's not going to get 70 yards receiving. So it'll skew the numbers and not going to be enough money wagered on the other side for you to be able to actually make money. So that's the thing I don't like, okay? It's really the only thing that I don't like about Kalshi is that you can't stretch the numbers as much. But for money lines, I love it. For totals, I love it. For spreads, love it, okay? And your basic props, like in the NFL for like passing or whatnot, like one touchdown, or if we go to passing yards, you could stretch the passing yards pretty decent. Okay, they let you stretch the passing yards pretty decent on here. So look, Stafford 175 plus here. Go up here, you want to put 1,000 on that. You're not going to make any money though. The reason why is because nobody's betting that he's not going to pass for 175. Okay, you have to kind of equate for that when you're looking for something here. Okay, you got to be able to understand that just because you're choosing yes or something on one of these doesn't mean the payout's going to be equivalent, because this payout right here is like equivalent to, I'd say, like a minus 900 or minus 1,000. That's literally what it's equals. Okay, so that's some things that I would watch out for. But other than that, it's pretty solid to use for everything else and not worry about getting limited, because that's one of the biggest things with sports books is once you start winning, they start limiting you. And if they don't limit you because you're going peer-to-peer, which peer-to-peer means, like I said, you're taking somebody else's action, pretty much. It's not necessarily you going against a sports book. It's you going against everybody else. It's like poker and horse racing, which is peer-to-peer. Okay, it's pari-mutuel, pretty much. Everybody's putting into the pot, and then whoever wins, it gets divvied amongst them. That's how it works. So another thing that's pretty cool is, other than sports, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you could wager on here that you could possibly find value in, okay, depending on, where you work. Honestly, if you work in the government, there's some stuff in here that you could literally be able to wager on to be able to make money and whatnot. Soccer leagues that are all over the world, you literally can be able to wager on and not be limited, because I know a lot of sports books like to limit certain overseas soccer stuff because that's just what they like to do. Touchdown leaders in NFL, like you can do all that type of stuff, but you got to be wary of the amount of money that's being wagered, as in the total volume, because that's the only time it makes sense if you're wagering on something that has a mass amount of volume. So that way you could get down a certain amount of money. Like, for example, this LA Rams and Seattle game, there's $49 million being traded on that game. So that's why I showed you guys, like, you could bet up to $1 million on that game and not get limited or whatnot or anything like that because of how much money is being put on there. Now, let's take an example of something that doesn't have that much money on there. Okay, let's do this one. New England's exact win total this season. If we click on that, there's only, what, $8,000 being wagered on that. So let's say if we go to exactly 14 wins, and we want to say yeah there. If we put $1,000 on there to adjust the odds, it went from a 64 or 66 up to a 78% if we were to wager on that, because we'd be moving the line because there's only $8,000 being pooled in there. So you can't really do much there. So that's one thing to look out for, is definitely look out for the amount of money being wagered on these events, because that's what's going to be able to decipher if you can get limited, not to get limited, but you're going to get shafted really on the odds, and it wouldn't be worth it. Make sure you guys are looking at that, like this one. Being able to make the playoffs. Will Baltimore or Pittsburgh make the playoffs? Yes or no? There's almost $4 million being wagered on that. So you could go on that, and if you think Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs, and you hit yes, you could put 10,000. You could put up to 100,000, but you'd be moving the line at 100,000 a bit. Okay, but you can go like, let's say 50,000. Yeah, you'd be moving the line there too. Let's go 25,000. You'd move it just a little bit, not as much. Okay, but this is what I'm saying. You're able to get these hefty bets down. Like this is nice, because this is really where you can recoup some good money where the sportsbooks won't allow you to do it. So I do recommend using Kalshi, especially if you are in an area where sportsbook is, all FanDuel, DraftKings, BetRivers, all that stuff is not allowed. If it's not allowed, you could definitely use this, and you could use it for all the major sports, because like I said, you got everything on here. Okay, football, they got college football, the NFL, basketball, they got NBA, college basketball. I mean, all this other stuff nobody's probably really going to get into. Not Australian basketball, Chinese league basketball. Hockey, they got all your stuff for hockey. They even got tennis, golf, boxing, all that stuff. So another thing that's actually pretty cool too is when you put your money in here, you actually earn interest on your money. Okay, so they give you about 3.25% interest per year on the money that you're having in here in circulation. So it's kind of like a day trading market as well, where they give you interest on your account by keeping your money in here. But like I said before, just be careful with that, because I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to stick around to be able to, do this with a lot of the sports betting pioneers like DraftKings, FanDuel, the mega companies in this not liking what's going on here with Kalshi. So just be advised with that. But like I said, you can make interest on your money where you can't do that in the sports books either. All right, they won't allow you to make interest on the money that you have in there. They just want to take it from you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good would I rate Kalshi? I'd probably give it around like a 7.5, because you can actually manipulate a lot of stuff on here, which when I first went on here, you used to not be able to, but they've updated it now. So now you can actually manipulate a lot of things. You can move a lot of lines, and you can put it in your exactly what we want to do, which is move the lines on a lot of stuff. We can do here. Same thing with total goals on NHL here. Like, look, you can move it back to 4.5, 5.5. You do whatever you want on that aspect. All right, so pretty good overall. Pretty good to use. I don't know how much longer this is going to be around, I'll be honest with you. So just be advised. I wouldn't put a crazy amount of money and just leave it in there. I would always probably kind of move that money around, because the government, DraftKings, FanDuel, I'm sure they don't agree with a lot of this. So who knows what could end up happening in the future. But as of right now, it's a pretty good site for you to not be able to get limited and to be able to get your certain plays down, especially if you're doing a hefty unit size. If you're not doing a hefty unit size, not that much of a big deal. But if you're not in a legal state, then this gives you at least another option to use.